Yeah.
Spinning the wheel now.
For instance, like,
When I come back in,
usually
don't.
doesn't bring much.
I love how they think they're like,
I mean,
that
people-
you don't notice them pointing at me doing this.
Throw away couches or chairs. They'll bring 40, 50 bucks down because
And the
people,
best is when like
they don't
none
get
of us
advertised
realize we're in
properly
there.
at a
Like the one
live
day when
sale,
we're literally like
and
crawling on the
people
floor,
don't
and
really
then
want
you
to
like.
stay sale like pools.
To feel wet and the wind is like.
Well, it's good to do them both live and
Yeah.
I had a guy
We're
that
doing
had
our review on Thursday, and I was like, I'm gonna
rifles,
come up with some kind of like
and I did that
twist
live
to
online
put on it.
2
So
months
I
ago.
can like, because last time it was you.
But
and you were
80% of the
in
bidding was
so-
online.
Yeah, I'm kind of tired. I was like, I'm
So,
I don't know.
But I heard on the show,
You
we
have
like
to
not working.
You
I do
have
too,
to come
yeah.
on like,
It's so fun. It's really silly stuff.
yes. And like the minute it's just funny because like
Right.
today Miss Errol
Yep.
came like
It
randomly.
makes
She
it-
never
Maybe that's
met
why
and she came in. She literally
Yeah.
walked in and they were all
there's not as many deals.
I
So it's
my
not
first
kind
time
of
I
like,
she was in my
like,
band class.
For deals and
not
resales.
not
I
finding
fucking
that
I mean, people know what they're looking for.
She played
And that's how they say it too. That's literally how they say it too.
This has really changed.
Brooklyn, she's not a freshman.
They literally get a dollar.
And she-
There's one. There's one.
She's
I'm
not
sorry.
Oh,
But
that
just
makes
like,
me feel
like,
bad.
there was one that was like, we had a huge Yankee stamp sale. We would do it live online, but the first time doing it online is bringing probably 30% more. Yeah, right. All the way around,
I
yeah.
want to be clear. I have no favorites. I'm in my room right now.
No, it's very small.
And I would
Yeah,
use
there are
it
some
about
days
2
where
or
they're
3 a
not.
year.
Yeah.
My buddy that owns the company that couldn't work for it.
Love them all.
Well, when COVID hit, I was bored, and I just, that whole summer, 2020, I started calling people, and
No one's finished so far.
two and a half
Matt
months.
is the lead.
I mean, so on the weekends, other things, I'm doing that, you know? So,
Now, granted, I spent every time I got past the road. I ruined the whole mystique of it because the first time I ever spun it, I got it.
Not bored
I
now.
ruined it. I shouldn't have spun it again. 2022 is not a good year for me. Shouldn't have spun it twice.
Karen almost got it. She was one on straight too.
Mine was on the like you have to land on one. It was like,
Yeah, it was really bad. The kids went nuts.
like guys, stop holding your breath. Maybe it'll move it.
Oh. Okay, what did you think when we howled today? Did you first howl? Did you? I've been louder. So we were talking about your sonification. Oh, so we literally.
Are you saying you literally howled? They always hear the opera singing. They didn't hear
I need to fire that up.
It's a different register. Yeah, they always hear the
I
opera
know
singing.
to fire that up. And then I and then like the next one was clapping really. So then they were like super loud. One was like Jamari and then one was asking, did you hear
Did you hear?
Yeah, they did. Did you hear? No, I didn't hear you. Sorry.
I'll tell you what, Jamari has grown.
Him and honestly,
That's part, you know, we talked a lot
I think
about it.
the consistency of his life. Clicking, but I do really like being on the Sure, you get the outside world with the
I asked you, Wayne, yeah, I just know some corporations make everything.
It's weird to think, like, I mean, we only have half a year left with them.
Right. Just with my yeah. That's cool.
Yeah. Yeah, you can see her.
Gives them his name, yeah.
No, oh, well, you probably don't hear it anymore.
No, now I'm numb to it.
It was 2000.
Every once in a while, I found a spot with my meter stick. If I go like bang in the ceiling, it stops. So I just like get up and just like walk around and like see me in the ceiling. They're like,
I remember.
I need you to do that. It happens.
just like a crazy old man banging on the. You know.
Yes, yeah.
I built, like, there's people on social media doing like a 10-year challenge. I'm like, it's just because you were skinnier.
And you know, I wasn't skinny 10 years ago.
Yeah. No, 10 years ago. 8 years ago, that's
Okay, everyone, we'll get ready to get started. Did everybody, if anybody wants to speak tonight, did you fill out the sheet? If you don't fill out the sheet, no speak. All right. Like I said, welcome everyone first. Now I call this regular meeting of Smith Green Schools to order for January 11th, 2022.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thanks for being here. Let's stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, have a moment of meditation, please. Thank you. The mission of Smith Green Community Schools is to provide a superior educational experience that ensures success for every student through excellence in teaching and learning. This is the part of the meeting where we ask anybody, is there anybody going to speak on what's on the agenda? Nope, no one signed, so let's go ahead and, since there's not, let's go ahead and do our introductions. We're just going to we'll do our introductions for those of you who haven't been here before. And all you're going to do is basically just state your name and real quick statement on, why you're here. So, like, I'm just here to learn. This is a perfectly good statement. So, if you would just start back in your corner, that corner, please.
I'm Sarah. I'm just here to observe.
Thank you. Go ahead.
I'm Mary Ann Goss, and I represent the Whitley County Concerned Parents Group.
Okay.
Casey Taxi, parent, here to learn.
Adam Booker, parent, here to learn.
Okay. Nate Thomas, 5th grade teacher. I work here.
Amy J. Jagger, 5th grade teacher, and I work with him.
Rob Collinson, 1st grade.
Audrey Rector, 5th grade.
Matt Wanseller, principal at Cherubusco Elementary.
Tim Pitts with MCOR. We've been working with Jody and your team and Dr. Heil on HVAC needs.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. All right, let's see. What's next? The annual reorganization of Board of School Trustees. Oh, this is fun. All right. So basically, we want to see who do election of our officers is what we're doing. So first, let's just go in order. Election of 2022 officers for president. Who do we want? Of course, this goes the same as a motion and a second.
Yeah, I motion Jeremy.
Oh, sorry for that.
Fight or anything?
The only fight would be on my part. That's if I remember how we vote on these each, don't we? No, I'm gonna disagree. Alright, there'll be motion in a second. All those in favor for Jeremy Hart to be president? I would say thank you. Alright, second one, vice president.
I will also motion for Jeremiah Johnson to remain vice president.
I'll second that.
Motion in a second, all those in favor? Aye.
No, I'm saying.
Alright, secretary.
I'll motion for, Emily to remain as.
And I'll second that.
First and a second, all those in favor? Aye. Okay. Approval and signature of the board member ethics. Was that a sheet?
So, board, this was in your packet, this is just something each year we ask that the board, review this document, and essentially you're just voting to reaffirm that these are the ethics you will follow during the 2022 year.
So, motion in a second?
I'll motion to approve, the board member ethics.
I'll second.
First and second, all those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Very good. Next one.
Annual appointments?
Okay, board, each year as part of your reorganization meeting, you are required to appoint the positions that are listed there in your packet for you. So, Mrs. Droyer does serve as the treasurer for the district. Mrs. Boyle serves as the deputy treasurer. Mrs. Dorella Schultz serves as extracurricular treasurer. The recording secretary is myself. Individuals authorized to sign corporation checks are myself, Mrs. Royer, and Mrs. Boyle. Individuals authorized to sign extracurricular checks are myself, Mr. Fallon, Mr. Wright, Mrs. Royer, Mrs. Schultz, and Mrs. Boyle. And then individuals authorized to sign checks, contracts, agreements, and purchase orders are just Mrs. Royer and myself. Again, board, these are no changes from last year. Just do ask each year that you annually reapprove that these individuals have your permission to carry out those tasks.
Questions or comments? Yeah, you know what to do.
I'll motion to approve the annual appointments.
And I'll second.
We have a motion and a second, all those in favor? Aye. All right, next one, designation of 2022 meeting dates and times for regular board meetings.
Very good, board. So keeping in the pattern that we followed since I can remember, actually. After this month, obviously tonight was on a different evening because of the conflicts that we discussed last month. But moving forward for the rest of the year, we did go ahead and check the third Monday of each month. And each one of those does appear clear on our master calendar here at school. So board members, unless you have any individual conflicts that we need to talk about any of these dates, we do recommend that these be the meeting dates for the remainder of 2022. And one exception, sorry, I should point out, in August, we always do have that additional meeting of the first Monday of August in addition to the third Monday. And for those new to board meetings, we always do that because typically we have some late hire approvals to get approved right before school, so we like to have a meeting on the calendar. We can always cancel it if we don't need it, but that way it's already on everyone's schedule in case we do need to approve any new employees.
Okay. And is there anything, if we wanted to change the time, or are we sticking with 7 o'clock? I think you were the one that had the biggest conflict the last time we talked.
No.
Or Kathy did too.
We talked about moving it to 6, and I thought that was gonna be difficult for me.
And Kathy's
I
not
think there were some conflicts last time, so.
Okay, so I guess we'll keep it at 7.
Were there any date, I don't know if everyone had a chance to review these.
I looked a bit so far out, but
Any issues?
Yeah. The only issue I have is the May meeting, because that's my birthday.
We'll note that.
you want to be here?
You know, in
That means I'm
elementary,
expected to.
you bring the trees.
You bring the trees.
That's-
Oh, I know. Is that awesome?
It's
Alright.
supposed to happen.
We'll make sure we're in the big room.
I started that one for you, Jeremiah. Will we still, have they put any regulations on, will we still be able to attend virtually if we needed to?
At the moment, yes.
Yes.
But remember, per your board policy and per the Navy Code from last session, there are those limitations. If there's certain items on the agenda, you won't be able to participate virtually. But as of
Okay.
now, that is still possible, yes.
Okay.
Yep.
But you could still view it. You just
Yes.
know the parameters,
Right.
topics.
Yep.
Okay.
So board, if that looks good, just need, your approval to go ahead and get those locked in for the year.
All right.
motion to approve the 2022 meeting dates and times for regular board meetings.
I'll second it.
Motion and second, all those in favor? Aye. Review and designation, next subject, review and designation of board compensation.
Very good. So board, you may remember this last year. Each year we do ask you to just review the old policy 0144.1, which is the board policy that dictates the amount that board members are paid each year. Currently under Indiana Code, $2,000 is the maximum that any board member can be paid. Smith Green traditionally has always just had that $2,000 max, which is what pretty much every board does. So board, we're not recommending any changes at this time, so just bring that as a recommendation to continue that practice, but do need your approval this evening.
I know there's been days there should be more. Yep,
I motion to approve the board compensation.
I'll second it.
alright, motion second, all those in favor? Aye. Alright, appointment of corporation counsel?
But we gotta skip one.
Oh, did?
Board of Finance.
Oh, board of finance, sorry, designation of board of finance.
Very good. So board, under the Indiana statutes, I won't read those out loud, it's a lot of numbers there. But each year, the Board of School Trustees is required to appoint annually the Board of Finance as a legal entity. So the Board of Finance includes members of the board, and therefore we recommend that the Board of School Trustees and myself be appointed as the Board of Finance for the calendar year 2022. And then the current president, Mr. Hart, and secretary of the board, Emily, are able to serve as the elected officers, president and secretary respectively, for the Board of Finances. Again, this is what we've done each year. I'm just needing to get your approval on that.
Questions and comments on that? If not, motion and second.
I motion to approve the designation of board finance.
And I'll second that.
Motion and second, all those in favor? Aye. Next is the appointment for corporation counsel.
Yes, so board, the last few years, we have worked with Mr. Tim Shelley from the law firm of Work and Boyne based out of Elkhart. We've been extremely happy with Mr. Shelley's services. He's done a great job for our corporation and really helped us navigate through all sorts of things that we've worked on these last years. So it is my recommendation that we continue to retain the legal services of Tim Shelley and the law firm of Work and Boyne for the 2022 calendar year.
I also thought Mr. Shelley did a great job. Any other questions or comments? No? So we have a motion and a second.
I motion for the appointment of Tim Shelley for corporation counsel.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Next, appointment of legal advertising.
Excellent. So board, each year, once again, a step that you need to complete at this meeting is to make public your approval of where we will advertise whenever we have any sort of legal notice that must be advertised, whether that's a building project bond, things like we're gonna talk about tonight with Tim here tonight as well. And so again, as we've always done the last few years, because of where our communities are located, the two newspapers that we've always used have been Albion New Era and the Cherubusco News, because those are located in our area. So we're just again recommending that we continue that practice of using the Albion New Era and Cherubusco News to advertise all legal notices and requirements of our school corporation.
A motion to approve the appointment for legal advertising.
I'll second.
A motion and a second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Appointment of Smith Green Multi-School Building Corporation members.
Very good, board. So the building corporation has been formed for quite a long time. And as a reminder, these are the three community members who serve on our Smith Green building, multi-school building corporation. And their main function is whenever the board takes out a bond or whatnot, that's the entity that technically does all these back-end work for those things. So as in the last few years, Todd Fleetwood has served as president, John Schmidt has served as secretary, and Rob Marr has served as treasurer. And all three of those individuals are comfortable remaining in those roles. Board, if you are comfortable approving them to continue in that capacity.
Questions, comments? All right.
I motion to appoint the Smith Green Multi-School Building Corporation members.
I'll second it.
First and second. All those in favor?
Aye.
This one's, so it's appointments of committees.
Yes. So I'm I'm not gonna read all these reports, because these are a lot, but, board, we talked about this a lot last year, especially since we were brand new and we had to make some decisions, or say, you had to make some decisions. So these are all of the various committees for the school corporation that each of you serve on in various capacities. Obviously, with the pandemic the last couple of years, many of these committees haven't been very active. Hopefully that will be ending one of these days and things will get back on track. But again, just to get your starting place, we just recorded everything that each of you was serving in currently. I don't know if you have any recommended changes or if anyone wants to step down from any positions. Otherwise, you can certainly approve this as presented. But of course, that's up to you if any of you would like to switch committees that you serve on. And when you're done, just need to approve the list with any changes.
I know I'm happy with mine. I'm waiting to get free food. Hopefully it's pizza there.
I'm also happy with mine.
You're good.
Yeah.
Okay, so if you just want to approve as presented, I'll leave it.
Yeah. And I think Kathy emailed back, she's good, if I remember right. Mentioned that. Okay.
Good.
All right, go ahead.
I'll motion to approve appointments to the committees.
No, second.
First and second, all those in favor? All right. All right, now we can move.
Okay, thank you, board, for completing all those required steps as we do each January. So, now we're moving on to the consent agenda, the regular portion of our meeting here. So board, there's not a lot on the consent agenda because obviously Christmas break has been 2.5 weeks since we've seen each other. Hasn't been that long. So, on the consent agenda are just your minutes from the regular meeting in December, on December 20th. There are a handful of professional leaves there for your consideration. And then really the only other item on here right now is accounts payable. We have not had any donations, new field trips, or fundraisers since we saw each other last. So that is everything on the consent agenda this evening.
Anything? Any board? Everything good to me? All right, for a second.
I'll motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
First and second, all those in favor? We ready?
Very good. Thank you, board. Next item is personnel agenda on the superintendent report. So again, not much. There's a few ECA additions, essentially basically all just spring sports that we're going ahead and getting those positions approved. So we're ready to go when those seasons start here in a couple of months. And then the only other item on the personnel agenda this evening is Mrs. Alyssa Geiger, one of our 4th grade teachers, has submitted a request for maternity leave, tentatively starting March 24th, but obviously we all know who that really is up to. And then the plans will be for her leave to extend tentatively through the end of this school year. At this moment, she does plan to return for the fall, but maybe we'll determine all of that, of course. And that is everything this evening on the personnel agenda.
I'll motion to approve the personnel agenda. I'll second it.
First and second, all those in favor? All right. All right, so we move to legislative report.
From the legislative side of things, things are really just kicking off down in Indianapolis. I would say the one that's probably the hottest topic right now, and there's a whole bunch of bills that are associated with it, and it's party affiliation. So basically requiring school board members to designate what political party they are associated with for voting. So there's a handful of bills around that. And that's the biggest one that I've seen as far as communication so far. It's been getting a lot of traction, so that's all I have for the legislative report.
All right, thank you, sir. Other business?
Okay, board, first item, letter A, here under number 6, other business. Mr. Ruckman has given us an update on a lot of our older Chromebooks that are now at the end of their life cycle. We have 590 Chromebooks that are 7 years old. Their operating system has expired and is no longer supported by Google. They are considered obsolete machines. They've been using them for repairs and whatnot, but again, there's only so many spares we needed at any one time. And so we are able to recycle these. We do receive $1 per Chromebook for turning these back into recycling, but doesn't seem like much, but it's hey, $1 more than we had, right?
And they're out of our way.
That's right. So we do need your approval, however, before we take that step to have those recycled and have those disposed since they're obsolete. So for that's just bringing to you this evening for your permission to send those off to be recycled.
A motion to approve disposal of obsolete Chromebooks.
I'll second it.
Motion and a second, all those in favor? Aye. Okay.
Ready?
Yep.
Okay, board, next item on our agenda is for your consideration is the approval of MCOR as our energy services provider. And so because he will be able to speak much more eloquently and intelligently about this than us, we did invite,
I'll try.
we'll find out. We invited Tim Pitts to be here with us tonight. Tim, we've worked a lot with over the last few months, just talking ideas and whatnot on some of the projects that we've talked about board. And Tim's company does give some options as far as energy services and savings agreements. So we wanted to give him a chance to talk. He did bring some materials this evening that we have over here. I don't know if you want those or you just want to talk. And we'll
That
have
was
them
actually
available.
what they, the
Okay.
proposal, so.
Perfect.
Yeah, it was
Okay.
just,
Yep.
basically background on the company, just to satisfy the state bidding requirements and all that, so. Once again, I'm Tim Pitts with MCOR Construction Services, which is the parent company of, you're probably familiar with Shambaugh and Son and Havel Brothers here out of Fort Wayne, so we locally, I work exclusively with schools. I've been with them for 15 years, and what we do is we work with architects if you need to be, or standalone. So we started working with Dr. Heil, Jody, and Wayne, more these two probably a year ago or so, and first started talking through things and working through budgets of your HVAC needs, plumbing, electrical, and did a full facility study for you guys. And through this process, you approve to advertise for an RFQ. By doing that, you will select us as your provider, and then once that happens, we'll be sitting down with Jody and Wayne again and Dr. Heil to prioritize your scope of work that fits your budgets. After we get to the prioritization, we'll go out and bid out your boilers, your chillers, and then, so basically we engineer it, we install it, and can service it after the fact. So it's a turnkey. It's really essentially design build. So with that being said, a couple other benefits of doing the process this way and working with us is it's a guaranteed maximum price. So let's say there's $1 million job. It's a no change order process. So if we mess anything up, we eat that, and there can potentially be savings that come back to you through buyouts, through if we estimate it takes 100 hours to put a chiller in, and we self-perform better than our estimates, we only charge you for 75 hours per se. So that's how so essentially a $1 million job could be 900,000. I'll use DeKalb Schools for example. We did a boiler project for them about $1 million, and they saved, after we bid everything out and finished the job, we returned $60-some thousand. So not every job gets money back, but that's another benefit. So through our open book, Jody will be able to see every dollar that goes into that job, every nut and bolt, every man hour. She'll get updated every week on that. She'll basically see our online payroll. So it's really transparent. We haven't went through that yet, but Jody and I have discussed, Mark Bierkamp is our CFO, and Mark and I and Jody and Dr. Heil will set up a time that we can go through that, and he can explain how that works and all that. So in a nutshell, we had to go through the RFQ process. Like you would hire an architect, this just satisfies the state bidding requirements, and you bring us on as your qualified provider. And I'd be happy to answer any questions on what we've looked at. I'm not an engineer, so I can talk at a high level, but yeah, so.
Questions for Tim?
Anyone have any questions?
And again, board, just to kind of full circle this back, we wanted to talk to Tim a lot about this because, as you know, some of the projects that we're looking at moving forward with soon are involved a lot of HVAC work and whatnot. Some of the things we looked at on our tour of the building a few months ago. So this just made a lot of sense to try to make sure we're looking at any avenue we can to stretch our knowledge as far as we can for our community too. So.
And the big concern in our district is these lower locker rooms that have terrible ventilation. So we're looking at what can we do for that in the weight room. Those areas that are just terrible right now. So. Yes. And that whole junior high wing.
Yeah, we've looked at all of that and have put numbers numbers together for you, and that's the next step, is to sit down in the next couple of weeks.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
The board, if you have any other questions, recommend that you approve N4 as our energy services provider.
With that, I just need a motion and a second.
All motion to approve N4 as the energy services provider.
I'll second.
Motion and a second, all those in favor? Aye. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, appreciate the opportunity.
Next, resolution for educational fund to operations fund transfers.
Mrs. Royer.
So this is something that we do annually, in January is the best time to do this. We can do it in February, but January is the best time. So in 2019, when legislature changed the way school funds were structured, we went from a general fund that turned into education fund. We went from capital projects, transportation, bus replacement, to operations fund. In that, the state now requires that some of the expenses that used to be in the old general fund now are to be taken out of the operations fund. So to help school corporations, the state does allow us to make transfers from the education fund into the operation fund, so transfer of revenue basically. So they encourage you to stay under 15%. And so when I created this resolution, I basically, at the bottom it says, this transfer may be made monthly on an as-needed basis, not to exceed $1,331,910. So, or 15% of the education fund revenue for calendar year 2022, which is whichever is the lesser amount. So basically what I did is I just took what our anticipated revenue was, took 15%. That's the $1.3 million that you see there. But if for some reason revenue doesn't come in where we expected, I'll just take, and typically right now what we're transferring is just a little over 12%. So we're not getting up to 15% anyway, so I would anticipate that we would not transfer that much again. So that's what this resolution is all about. It just lists all the state codes that allows this to happen, and I am required to get this signed by the board in a public meeting. This is something that has to be turned into the state and to DLGF at the end of the year when I'm turning in all the budget stuff.
All right. Anything for anybody? No?
I'll motion to approve the resolution for education fund operations fund transfer.
And I'll second.
First and a second, all those in favor? Aye. All right, next thing, Neola.
Okay, so I just had my meeting this morning with our Neola rep, which means the process is starting for the next round of updates. This actually was a little heavier one than I thought, so it might take me a little longer, but it will be coming your way very soon. So we went through all the updates and all the rationale behind them, so I will let you know when they are ready for you to start taking a look at.
Will you remind us how we?
Yeah, I sure will.
Okay.
I'll send you a refresher because it's been a while.
Yes.
It's been a while since we've done one of these. Yep, absolutely.
Okay, nothing for B and C. Okay.
Not tonight.
All right, thank you on that. All right, and this part is where public can make comments on anything, but I just want to remind for those people who may not be here that there's a 3-minute time limit, and comments which involve personnel or students must be discussed in private. So with that, we only have one person.
Yes, let's go.
But you still only get 3 minutes.
Come on, that's fair. That's fair. Thanks for letting me speak tonight. Can I just say that it's just such a joy to be back in the building with our kids. I know that after sometimes 2 weeks doesn't feel like long enough, but at the same time, when I'm back in there and I'm with the kids and I'm teaching, it's where I want to be. It's where I'm supposed to be. So thank you for allowing me to be in there and do a job that I care so much about. It's wonderful to be able to open and be back when with the way that things are with COVID right now, a lot of large cities and stuff have had to extend breaks and all that kind of stuff. I'm thankful that again, according to Indiana law, because we have the mask mandate in place, we're able to come back. We don't have to quarantine hundreds of kids when something like the daycare has an issue or something like that. So I'm just so thankful that we are able to be consistent. I I wasn't able to be here last month, but I told my kids I would come brag about them because they took NWA last month, so I have some numbers that I just want to share with you. My math class, which we level in 5th grade, I have middle-low math class, so when they come into me, they are just underneath or pretty well below grade level. Every single student in my class went up on their NWA. Multiple students ended the year above 5th grade, end of the year grade level. So they started below and ended above, so I'm excited about that. In reading, the story was very similar. Kids going up, they're working hard. My team is working hard. The people in the building are glad to be there. It's not always great. It's not always perfect, obviously, because nothing is. But I think there's a lot to be said when you're with a group of people who decide to find the good in things and accentuate the positive and focus on those things. And it makes our jobs a lot easier. The kids can feel that. They might say they're not excited to be back to school, but you know what? When they fill out their attendance question in the morning, and it's what's the one thing that you're excited about to, for this week, it's to see my teachers, to see my friends, and to, one kid put social studies. And I'm come on, that's a win, right? I was reminded that, my first kids that I had in 5th grade are now in high school, which blows my mind. But it's just, nothing's perfect, but we're doing the best that we can, and gosh darn it, this is a pretty special school. So I appreciate all of you. I appreciate my teammates, and I appreciate and love my students. So thank you very much.
Thank you. You still have time, Nate.
I do? That's okay. If I had taken breaths, I wouldn't.
Your enthusiasm is contagious. It's great. I love it.
I try to.
Thank you very much. All right, so with that, we will move on to our comments. And Dean,
Response
I do.
Sure, you've got something.
I have a whole list. So.
I didn't get the slide out yet.
Do I have the 30 minutes?
Yes.
No, I just, good evening. Just wanted to share kind of the wrap up of 21, and then we're moving into 22. And as you heard from Nate, we got some big plans. And so I wanted to share that with you a little bit. But it was neat to see the end of 21 kind of get a little bit back to normal. We ended it with, our Christmas parties, our family meetings. We had our first in-person music performance in 2 years. Yeah, it was great to see the stands crowded and to see our kids just light it up, and it was just great to have that back. 2 years ago, 4th and 5th grade, we shut that down, so we're excited to be back. So also with that, we were able to get our PTO back this year and do some fundraisers. We partnered with a community business, Papa's Place, this year. We wanted to do something for our town to help somebody out here, but also help ourselves out. So we did a punch card system with Papa's Place, which all of the proceeds went to us. The neat thing was it was $10. As soon as you bought that, you walked in and you got a medium pizza. So our parents got their money back also. And we were able to get $6,000 out of that went all to us. Yeah. So it's super exciting. There's about 20 kids that sold over 20 cards that are going to Papa's Place with me, I think, next week. So I'm excited about that. But the neat thing is that's going to fund some things that we had to get rid of last year due to COVID. We're bringing back our father-daughter dance. We're doing mother-son bingo. We're looking into a special person's day also. So that funds all of those things that we missed out on last year. So just super excited about that. Also wanted to share some of the PD that we've done already this year and continuing into next year. Due to our e-learning day, we were able to focus on school safety, really getting our kids prepared for all the drills and in case anything like that happens. In February, we're going to deep dive into Study Island, which is a program that ties to NWA, so the scores will go even higher. Other than that, though, every single K through 3 teacher, a 5th grade teacher, a 4th grade teacher, and all of our interventionists went to Orton Gillingham, which is a sensory-based phonics program, and we are already reaping the benefits of it. If you walk past one of our kindergarten rooms, they are writing sentences and words that we wouldn't have seen in probably till 1st grade. So I'm excited about that. Sent a couple of 5th grade teachers to a math I-Learn training to kind of look at the blueprints and how to how to set our kids up best for that. We've gone to high ability training. I feel like I'm missing some things.
We're going to textbook stuff.
That's my 2022.
I'm sorry.
I'm only 21.
Sorry.
Well, great segue into 2022. We've got a lot of big things that I'm excited about. In February, our 4th graders were chosen for the NAP test, which, chosen for a test, I guess. We're going to be excited about that. It's a national assessment for math and reading, so our kiddos will be taking that. So it was neat to be, that we'll be a part of that national study. I have a group of teachers who are working on an instructional framework. Actually, one of you is here right now. So we're looking at best practices for our classroom so that when we walk into a classroom, these are the things that we see, whether it's small groups, it's student collaboration. So we're excited about that. We are looking into math supplies. It's been about 10 years since we've looked at new math supplies. So a group of us are going to go down and look at that. And then we'll follow the same procedure. We'll bring it back to our staff and then also open it up to our community and you guys also to view that. And finally, we are still moving forward with our capital projects. We've been about 5 years going into that, redoing a grade level every year. So we're 5, 4, and 3 done. 2nd grade went down to Indy along with our emotional disabilities teacher to look at redoing those rooms. So we're on board for that. And then over Christmas, I'm excited to say that our kindergarten bathrooms, Miss Mosier and Mrs. Pettigrew's floors got done. Those have been there since I know, and if you know little kindergartners and bathrooms and floors, it's good to see see that. So I hope they're ready to buckle up because we're going for a ride in 2022.
Good, thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, that was great.
I cannot follow that.
All right. My turn. So, junior senior high couldn't be here tonight, but they did send me a few things to highlight. Sophomores took a field trip to all the impact buildings January 7th to learn about all the opportunities for them next year. They did take 15-minute tours around by the instructors just to kind of feel out all the programs and see what's there. We like to take our kids on that trip once a year just again so they know kind of what the options are because for those of you who've been to Impact or read about it or maybe had a child who's gone through that program, you know we have quite a few opportunities for students and a lot of times they don't even know what they are until they get a chance to see them. So that's always a great thing. Reggie White from the Department of Transportation came and gave a great presentation to all of our high school students on driving safety, texting and driving, and safety while driving with school buses on the road. So obviously that's one of those things that I know we all try to reinforce with our own children on a regular basis, but it sometimes helps having somebody who's an expert in that area come and speak. So we're really thankful to the Department of Ed Transportation team for making that happen for us. And then the most recent thing I want to make sure to highlight, this is on my highlights, but it's a junior senior high highlight as well. We did have a group of 4 students who just got home late last night from the National Livestock Judging Competition in Denver. Extremely excited to share. Overall, they were the champion team of the competition. Devin Gaff was named 2nd high individual. McKenna Sabaski was named 3rd high individual. Remy Enhart was named 7th high individual. So phenomenal placings. I'm just going to read them all out. In the cattle, they were also the championship team. The 1st high individual was again McKenna Sabaski. 6th high individual was Remy Enhart. In the hogs, they were the 3rd high team. 4th high individual was James Earnhardt. 7th high individual was Remy again. In the sheep, they were the 4th highest team. 1st high individual was Devin Gaff. And then reasons, which I don't understand what that is. They tried to explain it to me. But in the reasons category, they were the 2nd high team. 1st high individual, Devin Gaff. 5th high individual, McKenna Sabaski. And 6th high individual, Remy Earnhardt. So I cannot say enough. Congratulations to that team. Last time they went to this, they had a similar showing. So just such a lot of pride for those kids. And a big thank you to Trina Keener and Colton Geiger for coaching that and leading that. They had some trouble with all the flight cancellations getting there and getting home. So they didn't get home till 9, 10 or so last night, I think. But again, just very excited for those kids. So huge congratulations to all of them again on their success. Just generally speaking, here at the district, obviously we are working as hard as we can to stay in person. As much as we all want to say COVID is over, unfortunately it's not quite done with us just yet. But we are fighting through. I will say I feel very fortunate and blessed that because of the things that we've put in place, we're able to keep going in person. I know a lot of schools around the state are getting very nervous and are starting to have conversations about the possible need to go back to virtual. We are not one of those districts, and I'm very thankful for that. And I think all our parents and kids are thankful for that too. So, a couple things just boring stuff, board, this past week I sent you, an email about graduation time, so if you haven't had a chance, just peek at that and give me some feedback when you have a minute. Again, that's based on some feedback over the last couple of years, just trying to make the best we can for our kids and our family, and try to make as few headaches for everybody as possible. And then also, I sent you an email about some strategic planning things, so if you haven't had a chance just to peek at that, give me a call if you want to discuss, or if you feel one way or another, just want to get that started soon. Legislative wise, I know Jeremiah touched on one of the big bills, or several bills that are all kind of related on there. There's several others, and I won't go into all these tonight because we're only about a week into the session. But there's quite a few that I anticipate we'll be making sure that we testify and share some information on. Just trying to, again, just do our part to help Indiana public education be as good as it can. And the last thing I want to share is a huge positive that just happened today. I'll share some more information with you over email soon. But I want to give you the very exciting news that this morning, we found out that the Whitley County Redevelopment Commission, now you may remember I shared with you a few weeks ago that Mr. Hogston and I have been working on a grant proposal with that group, essentially to redo his entire tech lab area. It's a big project that we had on our capital projects list, but it was going to be a while because it's very expensive, huge area. We found out this morning that they unanimously approved that they're going to take care of it for up to $125,000. So that is a huge win for Busco, huge benefit for our kids. Again, I'll send you some more information on that and what that'll look like. It'll be a process, but essentially it's going to bring a lot of new materials, new equipment, and even some new course offerings to our kids over the next couple of years as we roll that out. So a huge thank you to Mr. Hogston. He put a lot of time into doing some great CAD drawings of the space to help the team envision what it would look like and what it was going to be. And obviously a huge thank you to the Whitley County Redevelopment Commission, because that's a lot of money, and we're very excited and blessed by that, by their investment. And I know they're very excited to see what our kids can do with that. So exciting things ahead. Thank you, board.
All right. That's great news. Congratulations to the judging livestock. That's great for our school and the kids. Other than that, I'd like to thank everybody on my part for, of course, visiting us today. That's all I got.
I just wanted to elaborate on the FFA thing just a little bit, just because I happen to know. Basically, that is their Super Bowl. So that is a progression system. So they do regional contests, state contests, that then moves into national contests. So it is against all of the, states and their state winners and things. So that is really, really a huge accomplishment. And I believe that is the second time in 3 years, I believe. So it's huge kudos to that group and that team and those coaches for really putting together a group that is really excelling and doing us very proud. So congratulations there. Another thing that I've seen here happen recently, or heard from a community member, we had an Earnhardt lady, Chad Egoff's, I said Earnhardt, Chad Egoff's daughter was actually grand or supreme heifer at the National NAILE, North American International Livestock Exposition in Louisville. Once again, that is another national contest, and she was champion overall. So another huge win for somebody.
Caroline.
Yes, it was Caroline. Yep. Awesome. So that's fantastic as well. Just something else from the agricultural, outside of the school system, with some of our local kids doing well. That's all I have.
Yeah, congrats, well, ditto. That's awesome. Yeah, and then I commend our teachers and things as well. Last semester seemed more normal than it has been, but I know it's still been pretty taxing. But you guys have instilled some good ethics. I know my 8-year-old came home and she was ecstatic that she improved in her NWEA. And I'm like, I never wanted to take a test in my life when I was that age, but she was really stoked that she had done better. So I just want to commend you guys and keep thanking you for your work. Being a teacher myself in a different setting, I understand some of the trials that we go through, but I very much appreciate you.
Anything tonight? I'd just like to reiterate congratulations to the livestock judging and thank the teachers for your enthusiasm. It's wonderful to see, and the administration.
Yeah.
So, thank you.
Sorry, my hair.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Anything else? No.
That's it, we adjourn this meeting and then
Okay.
maybe give a break if folks want to
Yeah.
leave, unless they want to stay for the
So-
Board of Finance meeting. We still have
So,
to-
yeah, I'm gonna close this meeting, and then this is your chance to run if you want.
I would run.
It shouldn't take long, as much as this is part of it.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's just informational, basically. So, I'm gonna go ahead and close this. Okay.
Thank you.
Close the
Thank you,
regular
guys.
board meeting
Appreciate the opportunity, thanks. I'll
For-
be in touch.
We will do that.
July
Thank you.
11, 2022 at 7:44.
Hey, Matt, any chance to ever get back to, like, going up to dad, mom? Since we're talking about, you know,
Yes, that's something
that
I'm gonna
happens on my mind, and he's saying.
Go ahead. I remember that when I went out there.
You might need it.
Thank you.
So yeah, that's.
I just remember, like, when the older kids went through the thing, they just absolutely loved that day.
Yeah, it's all coming back.
Because I don't have a daughter, so I can.
And then I have no son.
You guys are out. Although if you wanna come to the father-daughter dance, it is a riot. It looks like the middle school dance, like the dads are on one side, and then the girls are just running.
There's not a whole lot of dancing.
Gyrating.
A whole bunch of dads doing their thing.
Yeah, the dads are like all in the bleachers.
Yeah.
It's thinking about. We don't need this going in, so you can. We can go ahead and start. Yeah, really, a quick photo of the.
I got the mascara on, so that's why
All about the outside recess.
I know, I was like, I announced it, I was like,
Ready?
said not more than 10 minutes, it was like a godsend. Oh my gosh. I
Kids
know.
need to be out and play, but it's just been so cold.
Welcome
with
again
the
to the
weather.
second
So
meeting.
cold. I haven't walked my dog in the morning.
I'd like to call board,
Yeah, it's so cold.
Tuesday, July 11, 2022, Smith Green Schools Board of Finance meeting. All right. Wow.
Okay, very good. Hello again, everyone. The purpose of this meeting is just to meet the requirements of Indiana Code 5-13-7-6, which requires that officers be elected and other necessary business be conducted by the Board of Trustees of Smith Green Community Schools. So the first item, board, election of officers. You actually already indicated this in the prior meeting. However, just to make sure that it's clean and recorded in both meetings, we do ask for that you just reapprove that. So just to review what you approved a few minutes ago, the President and Secretary of the Board of Finance are also the President and Secretary of the Smith Green School Board of Trustees, which was approved under agenda item 2H2 earlier. So again, this is just asking board for your approval that we are reconfirming those individuals to serve in those roles for 2022.
All right, so we basically got to do it all over again.
Yeah.
Just with Kathy's with us this
Just
time.
the only ones.
So for board president,
We have to do them all separate.
No, you're just
Doing all same?
you're
Okay.
just reaffirming that those individuals will.
All right.
Yep. So one vote will take care of it all.
So I can motion to approve,
Mm-hmm.
I motion to approve those positions as elected. I'll second.
first and second. All those in favor? Aye. Okay. Mrs. Ward.
So board, annually, we must approve the depository selection, basically the bank that we're going to use for this, for 2022. And I would like to recommend that we stay with Star Financial Bank of Cherubusco.
Any questions or comments on our bank?
Nope.
Okay.
I'll motion to approve the depository selection by
second? All those in favor? Aye. All right, and next, permission to delete outstanding checks. Mrs. Ryder.
Yeah, and again, board, so, this is something that we just do annually, and, all of our checks that we write, whether that be from extracurricular, whether that be from corporation checks or payroll, are void 2 years after, December 31st of the year they were written. So this year, as of December 31st of 2021, any checks that were written in 2019 that are still outstanding are void. They cannot be cashed. So this is the time of year that I ask your permission to go in and void those checks. The money will go back into the fund that it came out of. So, so like any of the athletic checks that were written that were never cashed will go back to athletics. Anything that was like like the kids who had credit balances in their meal accounts when they left. We wrote checks to those parents. They're still outstanding. Those checks will be voided and put back into the cafeteria fund. So some of these checks that you'll see on here, it looks like in the corporation there's a United Way check. United Way a couple years ago moved offices, and we weren't aware of that, so we had trouble getting the checks to them for a while. I think this is one that just kind of got lost. So that one will be rewritten. Those are funds that employees have donated, so that will actually be rewritten and sent on to United Way again. I see the one here for the zoo. That was a canceled field trip. That the check was lost, and so we can't just void it or stop payment on it. We have to just let it run its course. So after 2 years, I'm asking permission to void that. I did notice also out of the athletic fund, there were several written in October of 2019 that were never cashed, and I believe that these are individuals who had helped with maybe a sectional game or something. I had asked Mr. Wright about these, and he was not in the position of athletic director at that time, so he doesn't really know. None of these individuals had come forward and said they didn't get paid, so I don't know if something happened and they had rewritten checks and these were the ones that were just, I don't know, misplaced maybe in the office, and I don't know for sure. But anyway, these are 2 years old, they cannot be cashed, so I just need to void those. So that's what that is, just permission to void those checks that cannot be cashed any longer.
Anything for Mrs. Royer? No? Alright,
I motion permission to delete outstanding checks. I'll second it.
first and second, all in favor? Aye.
I'm sorry, I probably should have stated too, just for the record, the total amount of those checks. So the total amount is $1,061.73, and that's the total of all the checks corporation-wide that need voided. Apologize for that.
We'll let it pass this time.
Okay.
Alright, next is the financial condition report. Talk about.
Alright. Okay, board, I'm gonna pull this off so I heard clearly, if anybody's still watching this at home. So board, tonight, as part of our required items that we do each year, as of a couple of years ago, per Indiana Code 51378, I must annually talk with you for a few minutes each year about the financial condition of the school corporation. And for those who may have been on the board at that time, or if you were just here in the state, you may remember the state started a new dashboard that the state now maintains through the Distressed Unit Appeals Board. Essentially, the idea is that this website and this database shows financial data for every school corporation in the entire state, and it tracks a key set of metrics that essentially is supposed to give the public a sense of the financial health of each school corporation. So when you go to that website, you can see any school corporation you want. It's not just ours. But there's a drop down so you can select the districts that you'd like to see, which is handy for taxpayers if they'd like to see perhaps how one district compares to another, or if you're moving schools, you may want to see how the district you're moving to is looking, etc. So anyway, this evening I just wanted to spend a couple of minutes very quickly going through a few of these, again, for the benefit of our public and also you board, and then if you have questions, myself or probably Jody, even better than me, can answer some of these. So just as a point of reference, I did want to start right here on our homepage, just to show we actually have a link to this website on our homepage as well to make it easier to find. So if you go to departments, to the business office. And there's Mrs. Royer. I'm sure she loves seeing her face right there. And if you go to district financial information, this is where we have all of our breakdowns for our funds and whatnot that we've talked about in the past. But then if you go to Indiana State Financial Dashboards, that will pull up a new screen. Again, this is through the Indiana Department, the Distress Unit Appeal Board, and then you'll see these metrics. And so the very first thing you do, there's a drop down here with every single school corporation. So tonight, obviously, we only want to discuss Smith Green, so let me get down to that, and then we will quickly review some of this. Okay, so there we go. At the top of the page there, for any taxpayer can access this. It's not password locked. It shares a little bit of information about our schools. It has our most recent audit report on here, if anyone would like to review that. If you want to see past audits, it takes you to the area that can also pull those up as well. It shows you our last year's student count, our last year's net assessed valuation, etc. So, there we go. So the first metric that they track for every school corporation is what the school corporation's average daily membership is. So if you recall, this is the student count that happens every fall and every spring that determines our funding through the education fund. And so, again, ours has remained pretty stable the last few years. If you hover over each of these, it will tell you some breakdowns of that information. But again, for us, we've had minor fluctuations up and down over the last few years. But again, we've held pretty steady right there. But we hover right between 1150 and 1200 students. We're always right in that range. Traditionally, most schools see a slight decrease in the spring. Not always, but that's typically due to we usually have a few students who graduate early at Christmas time or whatnot. So we usually have just a slight dip. Not always, but that does happen. The second metric that's shown here is our fund balances. And so this right now, by default, is showing all of our funds that we maintain. You will notice, for those of you, shoot, I need to stop hovering over this. You'll notice, I'm trying to point at things, but I forget every time I do that. You'll notice that in 2019, the funds start looking a little differently. If you remember, that was the year that the state made the large switch from the old fund system to the new. So a couple of funds no longer exist, and then they've been replaced by now education and operation funds. But the money's still the same. At that time, those on the board, we did some resolutions to move the money around into the new funds and life went on. So, but when you look, it's important to leave some of these turned on so that you can kind of see still historically, because if you only look at the education fund, you won't see anything before 19 because that fund technically didn't exist, even though it was the general fund. So, probably more detail than you wanted, but essentially, as you look here, this shows the health of all of our funds. If you want to break them down, I'm nervous to do this now that I keep messing up on the screen, but you can actually filter these out if you just want to look at certain funds. I won't go through all that tonight, Board, but if you want to look and just see, well, let's see how Smith Green has done on just the education fund the last couple of years, you can turn them off and just turn that one on. But overall, if you look, obviously, like most things, the higher the better. And as you'll notice, our education fund has certainly come back quite successfully. That's this kind of greenish one right here. As we've discussed recently, that's been a big goal of this board and Jody and I is to restore our cash balances in our funds, and especially the education fund. So it's been nice to have that restored back to the safe levels that we need it at. So, any questions on fund balances?
And I can add a little bit.
Yeah.
The ones that you see that are below the $0 amount are typically a reimbursement fund. So at the end of December of each year, if we have like Title I, or if we have money, we have to spend the money first, and then we ask the state or the federal government for reimbursement. So if that money's not deposited into that fund by December 31st, or I guess they're going by school year. I don't know if this one's actually school year. It's calendar year. So at the end of December 31st, if we have not gotten that reimbursement back from the state, it's going to show a negative balance.
Yeah.
So that's what the ones below the line are for.
Great point. Great point. So the next metric they look at is annual deficit or surplus. And this one, there's been a little confusion these first couple of years with this, because I think they're still doing some data cleanup on how this registers, because some schools are showing a deficit or a surplus kind of incorrectly because they're not accounting for all the transfers just quite yet. That's still new enough that I think they're sorting that out. But anyhow, as you look here, for us, it still looks good because we have actually maintained a surplus regardless of all of that. So if you look, again, the green is our revenue. And then blue is our expenditures. And so obviously we are running a surplus, which was exactly what was intended. That's what we tried to do the last few years to get our cash balances again restored from where they were in those lean years in the 15-16 time frame. So if you look there, again, if you hover, it'll tell you all sorts of other information. 2020, our overall fund balance was just over $4 million. So again, this accounts for all funds. Again, I won't mess up my screen, but if you pull this, you can sort out through the funds also if you'd like to look at that. Next one, fund balances as % of operation expenditures. So again, this is something we talked about a lot more the last few years. Now again, this right now is looking at all funds. So when we've done some of this talk, we've tried to target specific funds that we were worried about. But for the purposes of this right now, we'll just look at this because it all works the same way. Again, trying to maintain that healthy cash balance so the district is prepared in the case of any emergencies, any unexpected expenses. If for some reason the state was late making a payment into our bank account, we have the money to make payroll that month. We're still okay, which rarely happens, but it does happen. I think Mrs. Petrie has been through that on the board years ago when that did happen, and Smith Green had to have a solution in mind. So again, we always want to make sure we have cash on hand so that we're prepared in any of those cases. So again, as you will see, we had some lean years, and now the last few years we have really gotten our cash balances up to a safe and healthy level once again.
Dr. Madden, did we discuss where we wanted that cash balance?
So we did. So the board has set, the previous board to you has set that in the education fund specifically, we always want to make sure we at least have a 15%. Now right now this is showing also rainy days incorporated in here, which pushes that up much higher. Referendum operations, debt service. So it looks much higher. If we broke it out some, education fund is going to be lower, but we are still over our target, so we're in a good place. Great question. Revenue by type. This just kind of shows an overview again of where our money comes from. So the newest item that is going to show up, it's not really showing up much yet, but it will, is the stimulus revenue. Obviously that's new for all of us through the 3 packages that the federal government has given out, but that'll be showing up soon. But other than that, we do have a little bit of federal revenue normally, so you think about that, that's our title grant money and whatnot. Our biggest amount of state revenue, that's your education fund dollars, so the dollars that are tied to each child. Local revenue includes textbooks and
supply, like on your textbook fees, the stuff that comes in is corporation supplies, like for home ec supplies or science supplies or something like that.
Yeah. The small section that started just in this little area is our referendum revenue. So obviously that was new 2 years ago, so that now shows up as a revenue source for us. And then the bottom is our local tax revenue, so all of our other property taxes that we collect for operations fund and capital projects needs and things like that. And then the last one, again, not every district has this one, but we do, shows if you do have an operating referendum like we do, it just shows as a % of your total revenue how much of your total overall revenue each year is coming from your operational referendum. So for us, our referendum has only been active for two calendar years. So those are the amounts that it shows. Before that, you'll see that flat line because it didn't exist prior to that. And so this is just showing you as a % of all the money that we take in. It's about 8.5%, 9%, somewhere in that range. It's not showing the % when I hover. But again, you can click and it'll break out the data if you want to see it. And again, you can kind of get a visual here when you see all of the revenue sources because you see the small portion that it is there. So, and those are all the metrics. And again, just for a little historical context for everyone, I believe the reason the legislature and the Stress Union Appeal Board felt this was an important thing to bring forward was there were a couple districts around this time that had gotten in some pretty dire financial situations. And I know they needed some state intervention. And so I think the idea behind this was this will at least make sure that the board and the community has a little better sense of how things are going financially and try to avoid any surprises. Now, speaking about us at Smith Green, we obviously have this, and we have this directly linked for our taxpayers, but this was also part of the idea of Mrs. Royer and I, with one of my goals that we talked about last year, which were to also break out a little more specific information about our funds. So if I switch back to the website for a second, Board, I know you've already seen this, but we do have these breakdowns of each of our specific funds too, just for our community members if they would like to see a snapshot of where our money goes from the education fund. This shows overall how much goes to salaries, property supplies, purchase services, etc. Kind of a month to month as Jody gets things cleaned up here. So as she finishes up year end, we'll update the second half of the year here on this chart. Again, just to give folks kind of a snapshot of where money comes and where it goes. So we're hoping that's also helpful. When we, just to wrap this up, for me, when we talked about the referendum back in 18, a big part of that whole conversation was transparency and trying to be as transparent as we can. It's difficult to meet what every single person is looking for, to put it in a format that everyone will understand or that they're going to want to look at, but we're trying to come up with some creative ways to make it accessible so that folks at least do have some resources. And as always, if anyone ever wants to talk about the finances, they're always welcome to contact Jody or I. We'd be happy to sit and look at anything they'd like to look at. So, Board, I know I moved through that very quickly, but I think you've seen some of this before. Do you have any questions about the condition of the district or anything that you saw here tonight on the fiscal indicator pages? Okay. Well, as always, if you think of anything, just get a hold of us. We'd be happy to answer. Thank you.
Anything else? That's really it. So.
Yep. That's the last item.
All right, so with that, I will close this meeting of Board of Finance meeting for January 11, 2022 at 8:05 p.m. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Again. Matt, did you get these up? Did you put these up?
Yes,